What's up, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of my podcast, Happy Days, with me, Callum Church. Now, before we get started with today's episode, I do have to just speak to you guys very briefly about how the podcast is going to work moving forward. I'm actually going to slow down the podcast a little bit. The reason for this is just because I'm kind of in grind mode a bit with the current schedule of the podcast, and I think I just want to take it easy and slow it down a little bit, just to let my creativity come through, as opposed to my grind. I found that I've been waking up and thinking I've got to make a video today instead of what shall I make today, if that makes sense. So I kind of want to get into the tap into my creativity more, spend some more time on the episodes, and less time doing multiple episodes a week. So I will be doing one episode a week. I'm going to be releasing this every Tuesday. And I'm actually going to hold back on the guest episodes for the moment. I do have some in the bank which will be released over the next few weeks. And they will probably, be released instead of a solo episode on a Tuesday. Just as and when I have them, So one episode a week. Every now and then I'll pop in a guest episode when I have a good guest on for you guys to listen to. But that's kind of how it's going to work. I'm going to be spending some more time just putting into the episodes and really trying to make them the best they possibly can. So with that out the way, let's get on with today's episode. Today I am talking about happiness. Happiness, yes. This thing that everyone wants in their lives, right? I mean, you'd probably be a nutcase if you don't want any happiness in your life, right? And I'm actually going to talk about whether we are searching for happiness in the wrong places, whether we actually fully understand the happiness in which we're searching for. So, to kick off the episode, let's ask this question. What is happiness? Because a lot of the time we probably don't actually spend the time to sit down and think about what happiness actually is. Because when it comes down to it, happiness is an emotion, right? Happiness is emotion. Just as you are sad sometimes, you are happy at other times. It's just an emotion, If something makes you happy, that is your brain telling you, do some more of this, please. Because chances are it's good for you if it makes you truly happy. And if something makes you sad, stay away from that. It's just signalling. It's emotions. So we kind of get caught up sometimes with what actually happiness is. Because some people see it for what it is, an emotion. That's what happiness is. It's an emotion. But a lot of the time people use happiness as kind of this word for some sort of sense of bliss, which is waiting for us in our future. I.e., once I get rich, I'll be happy. Or, once I succeed in a romantic relationship, I'll be happy. Or something like that, Once I make it, I'll be happy. And it's sort of like this made-up idea that we're just going to be in some sort of infinite sense of bliss for the rest of our lives, But that's not what happiness actually is. That may be fulfillment on one level, I suppose. I mean, yeah, but that's not what actually happiness is. So, duality makes it so that happiness isn't actually worth chasing when it comes to it. Now, what do I mean by duality? I mean that everything in the world is balanced, right? Just as there is happy and sad, there is, brave or courageous and scared, or there is rich and poor. There is balance everywhere when it comes to it. Good and bad, happy, sad, success or failure. There's balance everywhere. There's always two ends of a spectrum in everything that we see in the world. That is what duality is. It's yin and yang, if you like. So, let me take you back on a little throwback right now. Do you guys remember, having like a Nokia brick? Or like one of those really old school phones? Because I remember I had a, what did I have? I think I had like a Sony Ericsson or something. But I used to love that phone, man. I had this Sony Ericsson, and I used to love it. I used to love being able to take like pictures on it and stuff. I used to enjoy playing all the really crappy little games on the phone and all that sort of thing. I used to love it. There'd actually be times where I just sit there and just go through the ringtones and just listen to some of them. Just like I'd have like a different ringtone every week. God knows why, because no one ever called me when I was about 9 or 10 years old. But man, I used to love that phone, right? And I was really quite grateful for it. Whereas now we're, a few years in the future, and we are blessed with the power of smartphones, and the incredible phones which we have right now. If you were to have, let's say, a Nokia Brick or a Sony Ericsson, in my case, you'd be quite disappointed if you had that, if everyone else had iPhones, right? And look, that doesn't take anything away from the fact that you were super happy with that phone back in the day. But if you put that phone into the world that we live in now, you'd be really disappointed from it. That phone is exactly the same, by the way, in whether it was in 2008 or 2021. That phone was exactly the same, and yet, depending on your circumstances, you are either happy with it or not happy with it. The circumstances of where you are when you have that phone determines how happy you are with it. It's not the actual phone itself. It's just your surroundings, and it's because we're constantly comparing and all this sort of thing. So that kind of just goes to show that the goalposts of what makes you happy are just constantly changing. They're constantly moving. And because of that, chasing happiness is actually kind of futile, because it's always dependent on our surroundings and that kind of thing. So when it comes to happiness and being happy, you don't really want that, because, I mean, with the sense of duality and obviously the circumstances changing, whether we're happy or not, it's always sort of coming from external sources. It's always our we're chasing joy. We're not chasing actual fulfillment or anything like that. We're chasing joy, which is just a momentary emotion which passes, and then there's the next best thing. That's why a new iPhone comes out nearly every year, is because it's the next best thing. Why do people buy these things when they have a perfectly fine, like barely 1 year old phone, which is pretty good? It has everything you need. Why does everyone have to buy an iPhone 12? An iPhone 13 will come out, 14, 15. It'll just keep going, Why do we need to do this thing? Because we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. It's our circumstances. It's our ranking in social status, I guess. I don't know. Who has the best phone, therefore you are the happiest or whatever. But even when you have that phone, you might love it for a week and you'll be sat there thinking, oh yeah, this is awesome. But that slowly fades, right? And then the next phone will come out and then, you're done by then. You got to get the next one. And this just goes to show that how our circumstances affect it, and it also kind of shows how duality affects it as well. Because just as there is happy, there is also sad. How can you understand what happy is if you don't have sad? Let's just hypothesize right now. Imagine a world where there was no sadness ever. No sadness. No one could possibly feel sad. Everyone was happy all of the time. What does happiness mean in that world? You'd have no way of understanding it, because it's the sadness that gives the contrast to the happiness. It literally makes happiness what it is. Happiness isn't, some sense of bliss that only exists in our heads. It doesn't actually exist in the real world. That's not what happiness is. Happiness, it's just the absence of sadness. And sadness is just the absence of happiness. Do you see how these two things interlock and flow and change? That is what duality is. That is how happiness and sadness works. They work off of each other. One cannot exist without the other. That's just a fact. So when we're chasing happiness and trying to eliminate our sadness or whatever that is, what you're actually doing, you're actually chasing something which A, isn't impossible, but if it was possible, you're actually chasing something you don't want. Because if you get rid of sadness, what is happiness? There's nothing there to ground what happiness is if sadness isn't present, you know? So that's why you don't want happiness, actually. What you want, and this is the good stuff, what you actually want is peace, okay? Peace is what you're after. Now, what is peace, Callum? Why are you throwing words at us all the time? Peace is, or peace to me anyway, is the absence of worries, okay? And it's basically just looking to simplify your life. And I know what everyone's saying. Everyone's saying, whoa, Callum, you were sat there talking about duality before. Surely you can't have peace if you don't have the worries. In the absence of worries, there is no peace, right? Well, what peace actually is, the more we eliminate our worries, and in some ways, the more we eliminate the bad habits of chasing happiness or chasing momentary joy. If we start to eliminate both those momentary pieces of joy which we chase, and if we eliminate also our worries which are frustrating us, that is what peace is. And I've got an analogy for you to kind of help you to visualize this, because I'm a visual learner, and it really helps me to talk about this in analogy so that we can understand it. Imagine that you are a boat on a tide, okay, and this tide, there's waves, it's in the ocean, and the boat is just bobbing up and down, with the waves, with the tide, whatever. These waves, they are the oscillations which we have daily between happy and sad. You might wake up in the morning, stub your toe on the end of the bed, and you're sad. The wave comes down, okay, but then you go downstairs and you have your favourite breakfast, and that brings you back up, you're a little bit more happy. And then you're sad again because, hey, your boss at work is being a knob, and that brings you down. And then you get back home and you watch some of your Netflix, and that's that momentary joy again. Whoa, we're back up here and we're happy again. That is what a lot of us do every single day. We're constantly oscillating up and down between happiness and sadness. Peace is a much better kind of tide. It's where basically the water's flat, like a pool. I tell you what, I went to the beach this morning. This is totally off topic, but I went to the beach this morning, and man, I've never seen the beach so good. The water was just dead flat. It was like swimming in a pool. That is what peace is. When your boat can just sit on the water gently and just float around, man, and just enjoy it. Because let's be honest, if you're sat on a boat that's rocking up and down all the time, you're going to feel a bit seasick. You're going to be throwing up over the end of the boat. You're going to be clinging onto the boat just to stay on and try not to fall off it, right? So what's the more pleasurable experience? Do you feel better when you're on a boat that's rocking all over the place and whoa, it's all over the place, there's waves carrying you everywhere? Or are you more happy on the boat which is just sat there and it's just cruising? It's just on the flat water, it's chilling, it's floating. I mean, for me, I'm going to take the boat that's sat on the still water, right? Because, hey, that's peace, Absence from the worries, but yes, also absence from the momentary pieces of joy which ultimately don't fulfill us anyways. So that's what you actually want. And just to end today's episode, I do have a couple quotes. And these are some philosophical quotes. I do love a philosophical quote because it gets you thinking. And that's exactly what we need to do. As much as these episodes are good to try and get you guys thinking and inject a little bit of positivity and self-development into your lives, it's also good for you guys to, have a little bit of homework every now and then. Take something away from the episode that you can sit with and think about. Because it's that self-analysis and that self-awareness where you're thinking about these things in which you will grow as a person. So I've got a couple quotes here to make you think about what your happiness is. Or do you even want happiness? Or are you going after that wonderful peace, the still boat on the water? So the first quote I got is from Socrates, and it goes something like this. The secret of happiness, you see, is not found in seeking more, but in developing the capacity to enjoy less. It's a massively popular quote. You've probably heard it before, but let's just think about that for a moment. Secret to happiness is not found seeking more. It's not found seeking the absence of sadness, and it's not found from seeking the momentary pieces of joy which we have in our day. It's in developing the capacity to enjoy less. It's in developing the capacity for you to create some more gentle waters, some more still waters for your boat to just float along on. And the other quote I've got is from John Stuart Mill, and this one goes something like this. I have learned to seek my happiness by limiting my desires rather than attempting to satisfy them. Now, John Stuart Mill, he's talking basically along the same lines as Socrates. It's basically about limiting desires, yes, and also limiting your worries. I think these are one and the same thing. Duality, here we go. Yeah, talking about that again, Callum. But if we can just calm ourselves down, calm down the oscillations, calm down the rapidly rising waves and tides and stuff, if we just slow it down a little bit, then that's where your true fulfillment is. That's where your true peace is. And that's your true idea of what happiness could be. It's not happiness, but it is peace. And I tell you what, it's definitely what you are searching for. So with that, that is the end of today's episode. I do truly hope that you did enjoy it, as always. If you did, please consider leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, because it does truly help the show. And also let me know your feedback on Instagram. My Instagram handle is @callum.ge.church. Drop me a message there to let me know that you're enjoying the podcast. So with that, I do truly hope that you did enjoy today's episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. So there you go. That's the end of the show. If you enjoyed, make sure to subscribe on your podcasting app of choice so you can download and listen as each episode is released. If this episode helped you in any way, tell your friends, tell your family, maybe even leave a cheeky review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show. But that's all for now. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode, released shortly. Take care.